For gamers, the name Metal Gear Solid is either a benediction or a vile curse. They make use of stealth gameplay that punishes rather than rewards brutal shootouts and run-and-gun styles of play. Furthermore, they tend to hew closer to real life with a touch of magical realism, a turnoff for many gamers. Most polarizing, however, are the exposition-heavy cutscenes and overly complicated plots beloved by series creator Hideo Kojima. When cutscenes last so long that your controller turns off to save battery, you're either in heaven or in hell. But obviously there must be something redeeming about it, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And today, we'll see just what that beautiful, rapturous something is. I'm your host, James Tabor, and on this season's ultimate episode, we'll show you how a video game can transcend its medium and become something even more than literature. As you might have guessed from the title, Metal Gear Solid 3 is just one part of a series. It stands apart from the rest though, so we won't worry too much about the others. There are some visibly identical characters, serving to tie this game into a greater narrative thread, but that's to be expected of a franchise as long-lived as this one. This series almost single-handedly pioneered the stealth genre of video games, with the first entry, 1987's Metal Gear, insisting that you do everything in your power to sneak past enemies rather than gun them down. It also featured a rather compelling story, at least as compelling as classic Nintendo hardware could produce. After a couple of contentious sequels, the series stalled until 1998 when Metal Gear Solid came out. It was a huge hit that, again, relied on stealth gameplay and a good story. While some of the twists were confusing, most were well executed and didn't stray far outside its own little world. Metal Gear Solid 2 is something we won't talk about here. So where does Metal Gear Solid 3 come in? Unlike most other titles in the series, which are set 20 minutes into the future, MGS3, or as it's known by its subtitle, Snake Eater, is a Cold War story set in 1964. While the game takes place mostly in a Russian rainforest, the important detail isn't so much the place as it is the time. By setting it during a period of heightened global tensions, it's the sort of story you could believe might have happened, minus the supernatural stuff. All the technology present in the game was either being researched or in development at the time. The story follows a CIA agent codenamed Naked Snake, secretly deployed to Russia in order to bring back a valuable defector. He's supported by his mentor, a war hero codenamed the Boss, as well as a team of supporting characters. During the rescue attempt, it's discovered the Boss is defecting to the Soviet Union herself, along with her team of elite Special Forces weirdos. They supply their new master, a Soviet colonel named Volgin, with a nuclear weapon to prove their goodwill. He then uses it to destroy a nearby weapons lab and all the evidence therein. Of course, news of the detonation reaches the Kremlin, who were tracking an American plane in the area at the time. They assume it's the first strike of a nuclear war, and only some timely negotiation prevents them from pushing the big red button. The CIA is given an ultimatum: stop Volgin's would-be coup d'etat and eliminate the Boss in just a few days or risk global war. The mission is handed down to Snake, the last of the Boss's students. During the course of the game, you develop a rivalry with a GRU operative named Ocelot and a relationship with a curvy double agent called Eva. If you're noticing a certain James Bond flavor to the whole thing, good. But don't worry, there are plenty of unique elements to this story. The game is pretty long, but it uses the time well, setting up a lot of fun twists and reversals to keep you engaged. You discover the real reason behind Volgin's plot involves a huge fortune stolen from the Allies during World War II. Snake loses an eye, and you even spend a little time in the afterlife. It makes sense in context. But the real kicker comes at the end and the slew of revelations it creates. At the end of the game, you've destroyed Russia's latest weapon, killed Volgin, and are ready to evacuate, except for one last objective: kill the Boss. Despite being an enemy, throughout the game she's done nothing but push you to become a better soldier. In your final battle, she puts you to the test. Once you defeat her, but before you administer the killing blow, she bestows upon you her final wisdom. A quick fighter jet scene and one showdown with Ocelot later, you're back in America, having gotten both the goods and the girl. Unfortunately, Eva turns out to be a Chinese spy and makes off with a fortune. That's still nothing compared to what comes next. You find out that the Boss, your beloved mentor, friend, and mother figure, only defected in the first place under orders to infiltrate Volgin's group. But when things went south, Rather than pull her out, her superiors elected to throw her under the bus. She even accepted the revised mission, on the condition that it be you who comes to hunt her down, just so she can make sure that you're ready to succeed her. For his trouble, and for betraying someone he loved, Snake is rewarded with a new codename, Big Boss. The story is built up well and the payout is incredibly satisfying. My pithy recap here isn't doing it justice. However, like most Kojima games, it's weighed down in the middle by heavy exposition, world politics, and nuclear physics. Even I found it hard to sit through it at times. Fortunately, there's a host of good characters to keep you involved. The boss's team, called the Cobras, are each gifted with a supernatural ability. They also have a complicated backstory as the multinational team that brought an end to World War II. And they're the flattest named characters in the whole game. Colonel Volgin might be the least interesting, but he's still nuanced. For example, he has a great lust for the disguised Eva, but also for his boyfriend, Major Rykov. I'm not saying bisexuality automatically rounds out a character who would otherwise be flat, but it does imply a few intriguing character traits. Especially for someone living in the Soviet Union. Speaking of Eva, she has an excellent arc herself, given that she's a Chinese spy who fell in love with a CIA agent. The non-James Bond twist here is that she stays loyal to her original objectives. Her real identity is also subtly foreshadowed by her use of a Chinese pistol and shooting style, which Snake's supporting team will only point out if you specifically ask them. And then there's Ocelot, the rival. On the surface, he seems like a pawn of Volgin, who's 2 steps shy of being as cool or skilled as Snake. However, he too is a double agent, and in truth is the double agent Snake was supposed to meet with, rather than Eva. It explains how he was able to zero in on Snake's location when Snake met Eva. Ocelot was supposed to meet him. And, as revealed at the end, the bullet he was going to shoot Snake with was actually a blank. But the real winners for depth of character and meaningful arc are Snake and the boss. While it wasn't much of a surprise to longtime fans of the franchise, the Snake of this game is the genetic father of the hero Solid Snake from the other Metal Gear games. In those games, Big Boss is the villain. This game shows us his start of darkness, the reason he would later betray his country. The reveal that the boss was no traitor is what drives Big Boss to villainy, though the change doesn't happen right away. The arc in this game is more about his change from a more lighthearted agent into the ultimate soldier we knew him as back in the 8-bit days. It's a heartbreaking one. So how does the narrative surpass the gameplay? There are a few things we can consider, but one of them really takes the cake. First is the medical scanner. When you get wounded, rather than just take some magic pill that heals you up, you enter into a minigame where you suture wounds, splint broken bones, and salve burns. It's a neat little aside, but after a while it just starts to become a chore. Then there's the stealth aspect. You can choose to sneak past guards or eliminate them. Sneaking is difficult, and even if you choose to tranquilize them, hiding their sleeping bodies is tough. Plus, there are no real rewards for going the non-lethal route, until you face the penultimate Cobra. After losing an eye and escaping prison, Snake ends up in the afterlife walking down a foggy river. He's being haunted by the Sorrow, one of the boss's former teammates. As you walk, you're assaulted by the spirits of everyone you've killed so far, unless you didn't kill anyone. If that's the case, the river is clear, except for the 4 Cobras you've already fought, who admittedly chose to blow themselves up rather than not die. You still don't get any mechanical bonuses for it, but choosing mercy makes confronting death a little easier. Plus, you just can't beat the smug feeling of satisfaction you get for sticking it to the Sorrow. So that's 2 ways narrative surpasses gameplay, but you might think they're not strong enough. But there's one more, and man, is it a doozy. In the last battle between Snake and the boss, she tells you Soviet bombers are on their way to level the whole area, and if you're going to kill her, you better kill her quick. She won't just lie down and die though, so you have to do the work. Once you've beaten her, she extols the virtues and sacrifices of war, and what it takes to be the best soldier. She outright tells you that in order to complete your journey, you have to kill her. The game pulls back as if returning you to gameplay, and it might take you a few moments before you realize that's exactly what it did. You can't move from your position. Only the trigger button works. You have to kill the boss. Not Snake, you. The game forces you to pull the trigger and be party to her death. It makes the feeling of betrayal when you learn she was just following orders all the more personal. You can't help but get angry at the thought that they murdered a true hero and you were their tool to do it. And you didn't even have to do it. You can wait out the invisible timer, and in a non-standard game over, the Soviet bombers arrive and kill you both. It's a little more poetic, to be sure, and if Snake was meant to be a hero rather than a villain, this is how the game should have ended. The game lets you make that choice for yourself, though the franchise already has a canon answer. This is why the game is literature, and good literature at that. It puts the decision in your hands. Don't be surprised if going back to the old games, you find yourself sympathizing with Big Boss. For centuries, literature has spoken to us and moved us in ways that no other art form can. It gives us the chance to live another life, to come away from it feeling optimistic or broken down as if we had survived it. Through the power of story, it teaches us and loves us and betrays us. Video games have that power and more. If the audience can make decisions once reserved for creators, they can become just as responsible for the story as the original author. And that is why video games should be considered literature. That does it for this season. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to this channel for more information about the next season. Until then, game hard and game safe. Thanks for watching. The discussion continues in comments below, so feel free to join us. If you like our show, please like and subscribe. You can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, or even send us an old-fashioned email.